right. Hello, everyone. I am, and I am here. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we have a really special episode for you because this is our actual official first episode. And let me start this. So, in a genre often defined by a blood-soaked battlefield and capricious cruelty, one debut author dares to ask a darker question. What if the true horror isn't in the sadistic villains or supernatural darkness, but the existing institution functioning exactly as designed? So, tonight on Soundipity, we welcome Romulus Romanus, author of Measured in Blood, a work that strips away the fantasy trappings of God and magic to expose something far more chilling: the machinery of control that grinds on, efficient and merciless, doing exactly what it is designed to do. So he coined institutional grimdark, where the terror is not in excess but in precision, where every drop of blood is accounted for, measured, and justified by the very system meant to bring order. So, in a word grounded in sociological realism, Romulus invites us to witness not the failure of civilization, but its terrible success. Welcome, Romulus.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
We are absolutely happy to have you here. And yes, that book is very interesting. Since you sent it to us, we've been reading it. And my understanding that this is an ongoing process.
Yes. So I started the process just world building, and I ended up writing a short story, which is actually the very first chapter, Sector Alpha 137. I got a lot of good feedback on it, so I decided I wanted to turn it into a full novel, but I don't have a lot of experience doing creative writing. So I'm currently releasing it as serial fiction on Royal Road. That way I can get a little bit of engagement, get some feedback from people, see what people like, see what people don't, because I'm learning to write as I go with the story.
Beautiful. All right, so that actually takes us to the start. So, where did the first seed of measured in blood plant itself in your mind?
Yeah, so you kind of nailed it on the head with the introduction. I'm really into sociological systems, and I have a lot of world building, a lot of lore behind the story. And I was working on a particular piece of lore. It was going over kind of the class hierarchy that I have set up with my different types of noble classes and my different types of citizens. And I just got to thinking, what would that tension really look like? You know, what would it look like when somebody from the consular noble class looks down on somebody from the strata noble class? And where would that tension lead? So I wanted to write a short story that it kind of encompassed that. And in the first part, you can see that with Decian. You know, he is a member of the strata nobility, and he gets an order that is going to kill a lot of members of his own family, but it comes from somebody who is on a higher standing in the hierarchy from him, and he has no choice but to follow that order.
Correct. Yes. And I mean, before we jump into Dickian, I want to jump in or touch into that institutional grimdark because
Mhm.
this was really fascinating and like it was immediately distinctive to me. When did you realize that this was like what you were creating, or this is what you wanted to define in this genre?
That has been my goal from the very first day of the project. I am a really big fan of the crypt art genre, but I'm not a fan of a lot of the tropes. I read a lot of 40k books, and I read a lot of military fiction books, and both of those lack something that I like. In the military fiction books, you don't really get a sense of what the real reality is. It kind of just feels like a story in a way.
Right.
And when it comes to Grimdark, you run into the same tropes. Everybody's cruel for cruelty's sake. There is some powerful overlord. There's magic that oppresses the populace. You know,
Yeah.
there's great magical beast that everybody is scared of. And I wanted to create something that was horrifying because it could be real.
Yes. You
You
actually
know,
read my
it
mind.
could function.
Absolutely. Because that was absolutely my first question for you. I'm sorry, my next question for you here, which was typically in the fantasy, there's a lot of magic. There's a lot of, as you said, overlords, villains. But in your world building, you chose a different way of going about it.
Yeah, I really want to kind of tap into the real world in a way.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people read because they want to escape the real world, and I've always felt when I read something that reminds me of reality, it makes me feel more grounded in the story. So I wanted to bring a twist to Grimdark and show what a Grimdark world could be if it was based on reality and it could function in our world. You know, there's no easy gimmicks, there's no magic that just makes stuff work. It works because it's designed to work that way.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. All right. So then, all right, let's go to your character. Tell me about Dickon and your main characters in your book.
Yeah, so there are three main characters. There is Decian, who is the main protagonist. There is Varro, who is a secondary main character. And then there is Kato, who I just recently introduced as more of a grounded main character in my most recent parts.
Oh,
And it all started with Decian. I wanted to have a character that I guess envisioned the perfect person for the world. He is somebody who accepts his reality for what it is, and somebody who takes his orders for what they are. And he's really grown as a character as I've written him. When I was first writing him, I just wanted him to come off as kind of the perfect machine. And as the story has grown, I've given him more humanity and showed what is underneath that machine when that machine doesn't have to function in service.
absolutely. That
And
makes
I
sense.
feel like he's kind of based on me. I have, like I said, I've been in a very. I've always wanted to ground the story in something that could feel real. And I've never been to war, obviously, but I have had to scrape my way up in the world. I've had to sacrifice parts of myself or enjoyments and goals that I've had in life just to keep moving forward. And I really wanted that to show with Decian. I wanted it to be kind of a gateway for people who have had to always keep moving forward. They can see that in his character, you know, no matter what happens, he's always moving forward.
I found that super relatable. Like, as someone who's running around with like ADHD and neurodivergence all the time, I feel like I am trying to like have that mask on where it's like armor or something, and you don't really like realize it till later, and you're like just wiped out from it, and you're like, yeah, like I need to like calm it a bit, you know? And so like that
Yeah.
entrapment, yeah, I really I can relate deeply.
And then Varro is kind of a mirror of that. Varro is sort of what Decian was before he took command and before he had to understand what it was like being a perfect machine in the world. He's young, he's green, he's fresh from command school, and he just wants to prove himself. And then he goes to war and he sees proving himself is the least thing that he has to worry about. He has 750 men who are looking up to him and they want to make sure that they go home. And his actions directly decide that.
believe, yes, I believe that really kind of touches into what I was about to ask here is that typically when you're writing characters that exist in like oppressive systems, because I do also know a lot about oppressive systems
Mhm.
naturally. So I wanted to ask, how do you give them like agency or depth to make them feel like less powerful than the
Mhm.
oppressive system?
Um, it has a lot to do with how the world is set up. The first 4 or 5 parts are kind of action packed, and you just get thrown right in the middle of it. And I did that for 2 reasons. One, obviously, you have to have something that hooks people in, gets people interested. But I also wanted to show what the reality was before I showed why the reality exists. So, in the first couple parts, you see them go to war, you see them make hard decisions, and you get to see 3 different operating angles. You have Decian at the top, he's the commander of the regiment. You have Cato, who is a high level officer in the regiment, and then you have Varro, who is a green officer and just coming in.
Right.
Once you get a little bit later into the story, they go home, and that is when you really start to see what they're fighting for. They have been conditioned their entire life to understand that this is their place in reality. I didn't want to have a story where the people are going against the system. I wanted to make a story where people were fighting just to stay in the system. Because, once again, I think that really reflects reality. Most
Right.
people aren't breaking out of oppressive systems. Most people aren't making changes to oppressive systems. A lot of people are
Right.
just trying to survive in them and doing what they can to survive. And I feel like if you've been conditioned to a point where you accept that as reality and there's nothing else that you can think of, that's what you do.
Right. I absolutely. All right. Now, there is a concept that you have in the book, which is the concept of drift, which is losing
Mhm,
your place in the hierarchy, essentially
mhm,
fading to this social.
mhm.
Where did that idea come from? And why is it such a powerful force in this world?
Yeah, so drift is essentially corruption. Within the Dominion of Flame, the main empire of my world, there is no religion. Instead of religion, they have doctrine. And these also get mentioned a little bit later in the story, so spoilers, but not really. It's just a little bit of world building that you're getting introduced to early. And instead of religion, because once again, I didn't want to run into one of those grimdark tropes where it's the Catholic Church or
Right.
it is some other type of oppressive religious empire.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm really fascinated by the type of sociological control that religion can have on people, and
Right.
especially societies. So, my vision for the doctrines was to create a religious system where the religion is not in some type of higher being or some type of power. It is in the system itself. So the 3 doctrines are treated like religious texts. They are treated like a theocratic teaching, but in reality, the worship and the ritual is over the system itself. So when somebody is drifting, they are being corrupted from doctrine. And being corrupted from doctrine means that you are corrupted from the system, and thus you have no place in the system.
Right. Yes. I think this is the part maybe that hooked me personally a lot because this is probably the closest to my own personal experience coming from my part of the world and all that. It does touches into how religious doctrines can absolutely, how do I put this? Like change how your world view altogether. And um, so yes, you seeing how you met realism here, it was it was really it was really impressive and it really connected.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, this brings me to this point that this is quite a deeply dark material. You know,
Mhm.
watching Dick encounter his dead family members or seeing the system grind people down. So my question is, were there moments where during the writing process, sometimes there is like so much darkness it makes like heavy to carry as you write. How did you
Mm.
navigate those feelings?
Um, so when I'm writing something particularly dark or particularly heavy, I wouldn't say it affects me too much emotionally, personally, but I do worry about how a reader would perceive it because I don't want to bring the wrong type of emotion. I want people to absorb it and to understand the horror of it, but to also see through the lines. I'm trying to thread a needle here where the horror of the system is matched, or I guess counteracted by the humanity of the people inside of it. The system is brutal, it's terrible, nobody would want to live in it. But the people who do live in it, you get to see their humanity and you get to see what they fight for. And I feel like that counterbalances the horror of the system. It makes you understand why they fight.
Hmm. Makes sense. Yes, I agree.
With that little bit of hope in the dark. I like that.
Exactly.
All right, and I believe you kind of touched on this before because I it did stand out to me that there is like military detail, radio
Mm.
communications, tactics, equipment, um, the field. I wouldn't say very grounded. So, is there like other authors, other military history, or any other resources that like really helped shape this approach of how you depicted the warfare in your fantasy?
Um, It really came from two sources. I do a lot of reading of military fiction. I read a lot of James Cook. I don't know if you've ever read Black Company, but Black Company is an incredibly grounded military fiction that really shows kind of the darker side of private military contractors. So I took a lot of the tactics, a lot of the radio communication, a lot of the directness of the military doctrine directly from what I picked up reading through a lot of James Cook work, as well as the fact that I'm just a really big history buff and I've spent a lot of time studying and researching specifically World War One and World War Two battle tactics. So it kind of just all blends into me having a general understanding of the way stuff works. And when I'm getting into more detailed stuff like the combined arms tactics or the walking barrage patterns, the defensive setups, that just purely comes from a lot of research notes. I
Mm.
did a lot of extensive research when I was building out the military doctrine for my empire.
It absolutely shows. Like it like I was reading it and it felt like there is a veteran that is writing this. Like somebody, knows something. You know what I mean? Like it was definitely more than what I would definitely use in my writing for sure.
I like I said, man, the world building is what I love. I've spent over 1,000 hours at this point just on pure world building alone.
And absolutely shows. And when it comes to that, can you maybe share one element in your like in your world that you especially excited that readers are gonna discover?
Um, so they kind of play hand in hand, and you touched on it a little bit in the intro. I'm really proud of the cast and the class system.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
I have not really seen something like that in other types of fiction, and if I have, they're more so used interchangeably.
Right.
In my world, they're two very unique systems. The caste is your operational role within the empire that can't change. It's never going to change. It gets inked into your throat when you turn 17, and that's your caste for life. But people can move up and or down within the social classes. You know, you can go from a commoner to a vassal class citizen. You can go from a vassal class citizen up into a strata nobility or a consular nobility or lineal nobility. And I was really proud coming up with that because I feel like that's one of the most unique things that I can offer within the world.
Got it. All right. Um, when it comes to, I want to say, when it comes to the writing process, let's switch a little bit for the process of the writing. When you sat down,
Mhm.
because, and I really, if anybody is watching this or listening to this, I really recommend just like start reading like the intro, that charge. That charge was beautiful. So when you start sit down and you start writing that vocabulary charge or the Senate Tribunal, um, so are you working these details like do you put like a detailed outline and you like tackle that, or are you building the scene and describing it as you're writing it?
I would describe myself as a pantser for a writer. I don't really do plot outlines. I don't really plan
Yeah.
out. I could probably tell you what's gonna happen for the next part or two that I have planned, and other than that, I don't know. Like, I have no idea how the story's gonna end. I am a very in the moment writer. When it came to specifically the cavalry charge, I wanted to write something that showed rather than told. And
Okay.
that part I actually rewrote at least 10 to maybe 15 times
Oh wow.
because I felt like I was over explaining it too much.
Okay.
And I was really focusing on the brutality. Every single time I write something, there's one focus that I have for that scene or for that part. I want each individual part to tell their own story.
All right. Okay, so now you, I think when I was looking at the Royal Road, which is the website where you post your fiction,
Mhm.
I believe you mentioned that you reached the 55,000 word word the goal that you
Yes,
have.
I
So
did. I did.
congratulations. So now when you look back at that first draft that you made versus like what people can see now, what is the
Mhm.
most significant like evolution in that the story kind of went
You can honestly still see it as you're reading. Parts 1 through 7 are me still trying to figure out how to write. The prose is pretty consistent, but the dialogue feels off at times. Sometimes there's more explaining rather than showing. And the proudest thing I have is I hit a major part of writer's block right in the middle of doing that challenge,
through? Oh,
and I had 1 week left, and I had to write 22,000 words. And I was able to just sit there and hammer it out. And through forcing myself to hit that deadline and forcing myself to just keep pushing on, I stopped second guessing myself on the dialogue. And now I feel like the characters feel more lived in through their dialogue.
makes sense. Yes, and the characters like again the detail that how you build them is really stunning and it really shows.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let me go to this note I took here in let's say it was the arbiter. The wearing
Mhm.
gold mask. There's the formal protocol. The way the Senate system functions. There's a sense of ancient yet elaborate machinery going on.
Mhm.
So, what kind of do you hope to contribute to the broader fantasy of that grim dark genre with this approach of the world building?
So that actually comes from a mix of actual Roman politics and my own grimdark spin on wanting systems that have absolute authority. So within the Senate, there were about 600 members for most of the Roman Empire. and they were broken down into factions just like I have it within my own Senate. Not exactly like I have it, but they were broken down into ideological factions, and
Oh,
there was a lot of infighting, there was a lot of division, and the politics themselves were very chaotic. Obviously, there was the emperor, and the emperor had final say, so the Senate didn't do a whole lot in terms of absolute power. But I wanted to incorporate that friction and that built-in chaos into a system that was designed for it. So the arbiters are there as a final hand of justice because of the inherent friction within the Senate. Uh, I'm very big into having balance, and I felt like if one system was built to be absolutely imploding on itself through friction, then the counterbalance for that system would have to be one that had absolute authority. So the arbiters are there to ensure that the Senate essentially stays in order. That's why when a tribunal is called, they are there to give their say, and the Senate has to listen to it.
beautiful. I love this a lot. It really is intricate system. You can speak volumes of systems, I'm sure. um, um, I guess my question is, what has this experience taught you about yourself as a storyteller?
I've really found myself as a writer when doing this. I used to just get a real kick out of doing the world building, and I get that same dopamine hit when I'm writing my stories. Um, it's definitely proven to me that I could do it. I wanted to write this story when it was just a short story, just to show that I can make something out of my world. And now I'm trying to turn Measured in Blood and the other works that I have planned into their own world as well.
Got it. All
Do you feel like when you're writing that you kind of just like spiral into it, like it just captures you and you keep going, or do you like break it up into different parts?
I feel like I go through phases, depending on what I'm writing and where I'm writing in the story. I sometimes just get zoned in and I don't want to do anything but keep working on it. And then there's other times where I don't know exactly what to do with what I have planned. And then I start to procrastinate and I don't want to work on it, but I know that I have to. So it's definitely a war sometimes.
right.
Feel that. Got your own war going on at home.
And then the other thing that stood out to me absolutely was like the name. It was, it really is intricate. And what was the inspiration behind the names in, in, in the book?
So just about every name that you hear, whether it is a given name, a branch name, or a house name, is derived from Greek, specifically ancient and Hellenistic Greek names, and Romanamia. Testa is actually an old Italian surname from the northern provinces of Italy, and the Testa house lives within the northern provinces of the empire.
Oh, that makes sense. That probably is what gave me that ancient feeling that was throughout the book. Makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see as you read more, even just side characters that don't really pop up again sometimes have a name. I feel like having a named character gives weight to that character. So I'm really big on the names. I want to make sure that the names make sense. For different parts of the empire, I have different types of naming systems and different styles, all that.
Oh, that makes sense. All right. I also wanted to ask about um, when you were writing. Was there any
Mhm.
like part that kind of surprised you yourself as how it turned out or how? that came to be after like you finished it and you looked at it and you're like, oh,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it. It happened really recently. I just released part 13 of the story, and I was working on part 12 for about a week. And the reason it took me so long was I wanted to show the brutality of the Empire. Um, I felt like you had seen the politics of it, you had seen the attrition warfare, but that didn't really show the underlining brutality.
right.
So within part 12, there is a particularly dark scene where there is a little bit of torture going on and there are some blatant executions. And I debated including that because I felt like it might turn some readers away and it might be too dark even for a grimdark setting.
Hmm.
But ultimately, I looked back at everything else that I had written and I felt like the build up had justified it because it fit completely within the Empire.
No, I agree. Sometimes there are you gotta like move the needle just a bit, even in your own perspective. Like to you, it feels like it makes sense. It is justified. Completely agree. All right. And when it comes to let's, I guess let's lighten the mood a bit. Let's talk about the cover of the book. I believe you mentioned that you are working on um, getting that like
Yes,
commissioned.
I I am going to be getting a professional cover done. The one that I have is pretty sloppily made, and it's just because within the site that I post on, there is a engagement factor, and
Mm.
having just a title up there and having some type of cover art gives you a little bit more validity.
Oh,
So I wanted to have something that encompassed the mood that I was going for. So that is Decian standing in a trench, looking up at a flare. I am working on getting a professional one done, like I said, so I should have that within, the next couple months. But I wanted to have something that kind of encapsulated the mood. And trench warfare is the opening bid that you get. So I felt like showing Decian really encapsulated what you're getting yourself into.
I mean, yes, we have it up on the screen now. It is showing, and to me, that's what really stood to me. Like I felt after reading like the first few parts of it, I feel that this gives us that beginning where before the charge, where he's just like that decision, because that is a tough decision, knowing that there are family members involved. But now, when you are thinking of the new cover, what do you have in mind? Like, what are you feeling like the cover of the book now that you this far in the story? What are you feeling that it should reflect?
So I'm still going to keep the general idea. I still want Decian sitting there thinking about his decision
Mm,
because the overall theme of this book is about understanding what it means to survive. And that's why the title is Measured in Blood. It's
right.
showing the side of. Sorry, I saw something in the chat.
I was just
It
doing that.
is it is showing the reality of the strata. They earn their nobility by they're measured in the trenches in warfare, and the main characters are all at varying levels of that system, but that is their reality. They are measured by their survival.
Got it. That makes no, I think this is a really like special moment in the story, and I think it really it would be great on the cover. It would capture a really good moment.
And really really everything ties back to that first cavalry charge as well. As
Hmm.
you get into the story, obviously there's other plot lines, there's other stuff that happens, but everything ties back to that decision, to Decian having to send, 500 members of his family into a cavalry charge where at least 50% of them are guaranteed to die.
Right. Absolutely tough decision. All right. And um, okay. When if you want anybody from like people that will listen to this or watching this, how can they support you? Where they can find your writing? How can they offer you support?
Yeah, so I am posting my fiction on Royal Road where you have it up right there. Um, if you guys want to read into it, you're more than welcome to. Leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review if you get that far ahead and you want to. And then I also have a Reddit where I plan to post more world building and just more lore around the broader world as it develops.
Oh,
And that's just my username, Romulus Romanus, with an underscore in the middle.
right. Perfect. Is there, and I believe this probably is my last question that I can think of here, and unless of course you have a comment for the chat and their question. Um, is there a question that you expected or that you kind of waited for that I didn't ask, or something that you wanted to cover that we haven't touched?
um, Not particularly, no. I mean, I feel like we kind of covered the bases of everything. It's still a work in progress, like I said. I will be adding more onto it and I will be going over it and revising it. But I do have more than one book planned in the series. I am shooting for a 5 book series
Oh,
on
cool.
the Testa story, essentially. So, yeah, I don't know.
That is
We'll see where it
promising.
goes.
That is absolutely promising. All right. So, do you have any other question for guest Cobra?
Um, like
Take your time.
She's taking notes and everything.
Evan, is there something that you would offer to somebody else who may be stuck and feeling uninspired?
You just write. Like I've been there. I probably would not have done this project if I didn't have so much world building behind it. So if you feel like you can't do something creatively, just find other ways to write. Anything that you write helps you grow as a writer. I think that applies to any type of, art, whether it's writing or drawing or making music. Just find something that works with your creativity.
Absolutely. Yes. Me too. I did remember a question now that probably would be good to look back to when you look back at this one here and listen back to it. What is so far your biggest milestone that you've hit? Was it the?
Definitely the Rideathon.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about
They had a challenge on the site Royal Road, where they wanted you to write 55,555 words in 5 weeks. It just so happened that I decided to post my short story on Reddit and had people asking me to write more as they were doing it. I ended up joining with about 4 weeks left, and I actually became a winner. There was 1,800 participants, and there
it.
was only, I
Congratulations.
think, about 900 winners. I was one of them. I got 55,000 and I got 55,583 words done
Whew,
within 32 days.
Oh, sweet. That is
that's a
beautiful.
lot.
Yeah.
I was really
That's
hammering
so
them out.
intense.
All right, and hopefully, yeah, when we get back and listen to this one day after, like, you have the 5 books, and you'll be like, man, it was that number 5.
I'll tell you what, if I release the second one, I'll do another episode with you guys.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. We will be more than happy to. All right. Well, this was really fun. Thank you so much for doing this, for coming here, for being our first guest, for, like, just being patient with us, everything. Like, we really
No
appreciate
problem.
you, appreciate you having you, and appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
so
thank you
excited for
guys for
more of your
having me
work.
out. Thank you. Yeah, tune in, guys. I'm gonna be releasing probably one every week, but I'm shooting to release 2 parts a week.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
we absolutely on the website now, and absolutely gonna be reading. That's for sure.
All right, thank you, guys. You have a nice night.
You as well. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. You heard it from the guy himself. Go to check his book out. It really is, like, he sent it to me, and it really, I just sat there and I kept reading it in every moment that I got, like, time to sit and read. And if you would like to be on the show next, we are planning to be live on Thursdays and on Sundays night. So Central Time, this is 9 p.m. So 9 p.m. Thursdays, and Sundays. You guys gonna find us here. So if you would like to be on the show next, go ahead, join the Discord. Exclamation mark Discord in the chat, and you can find the Discord. Join the Discord, and we welcome everything, all kinds of art, however it's made. If it's your art, if it's your story, we want to hear it. And whether it's music, if it's visual art, you draw, you paint, digital art, whatever it is, you voice over. We don't have much voice artists in our Discord server. Please
Yeah.
join, guys. Um, so yes, and we in a plan for a band that might be in a show here, just to get you guys excited, for on 18th, so next Thursday. And tune in for Sunday. We might have another author. Don't really quote me on it. Most probably we will. Um, and yes, join the Discord. We're gonna be doing listen parties. We're gonna be playing games. We're gonna be doing all fun stuff. Um, and if you have any suggestions for us, we welcome everything. Hope you guys like this. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys actually go and give Romulus Romanus some reading and some feedback. He would absolutely appreciate it. And see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.